I was just talking with somebody yesterday who has plasma machines, and they're like, I've heard of Waterjet, but I've never had one. Tell me why. We started talking about this, and when we said, oh, you can eliminate, the burr and some of the work art, and he's like, you can get rid of you. Oh my! His mind exploded at the concept.
At Beckhoff, automation is our calling. We empower engineers to succeed as industry leaders across all aspects of fabrication and digital manufacturing. We help you differentiate by harnessing new technologies, embracing open standards, and solving the world's most complex problems. Founded and led by engineers, we organically create advanced controls, communication, IoT, and motion technologies that become unique tools for your one-of-a-kind challenges in an age of digital transformation. As a global partner with U.S. headquarters in Minneapolis, we remain committed to sustainability, inclusivity, and support for the people behind the automation. Whether you're enhancing your CNC with new distributed servo systems, harnessing AI in mission-critical metal forming, or boosting part quality with integrated machine vision, you can reach new heights for your business, industry, and humankind. And now, back to the episode.
Hello, welcome to the Fabricator Podcast. I'm Dan Davis. My co-host Tim Heston of the Fabricators here today as well. We have a sponsored episode by Beckhoff today, and the guests we'll be speaking with are Paxton Shantz of Beckhoff and Aaron Montello of Jet Edge, manufacturer of Waterjet cutting tables. Good conversation about machine tools, technology being used to make them more user-friendly, hopefully for fabricators out there. We actually touched upon Internet of Things, and I think that is kind of one of those areas where I think people hear about it. I'm not quite sure if they know what it means. Right. In terms of helping them do their jobs better.
Yeah. Well,
what do you think of when you hear that?
Well, it was kind of a term that you heard a lot 5-10 years ago. Now it's kind of coming back because of the open architecture of a lot of software out there, and Beckhoff certainly is kind of foundational to that.
Yeah.
Where you need machine connectivity to be able to through OPC and other interfaces to be able to communicate data of what's being made, when, how, and how well. And it's kind of the starting point. So if you don't have that bedrock of machine data, you're kind of lost. You have no idea. It's a black box on the floor. You have no idea what's going on. And there's talk here of remote locating, of locating parts on the floor with tags, and all these different ways to gather data on the shop floor. And machine monitoring and IIoT is part of that. And it's going to be an interesting time. Though we also talk about, that's kind of the ideal, the advanced, and then there's that long, but then of course you got to get over the hump for the first stage, which is, hey, I just want a reliable machine to keep it on, and that's easy to use with an easy user interface. So.
Right. That's a plus.
Yeah. Right.
If you buy a piece of equipment, it should run. So
Step one.
There you go.
Is it running?
So I think you'll enjoy this episode of the Fabricator Podcast. Thank you to Beckhoff for sponsoring it, and enjoy.
Take a system-integrated approach to your CNC tech with Beckhoff. As part of an all-purpose ecosystem, Beckhoff's Twin Cat and high-powered controls can bundle all automation functionality into one machine controller. This can cover not just CNC, but also PLC, general motion control, machine safety, HMI, advanced measurement, IoT, machine learning, AI, and more. Learn how to automate what's next in fabrication at Beckhoff.com. Discover your path to leadership excellence at the FMA annual meeting, February 25th to the 27th in Chandler, Arizona. This premier event offers a unique opportunity to connect with prominent figures in the fabrication and metals industries, enabling the exchange of ideas, collaborative solutions to business challenges, and the cultivation of strategic relationships. Visit fmamfg.org for all the details. And now, back to the episode.
Welcome to the Fabricator Podcast. I'm Dan Davis from the Fabricator Magazine. We have a good episode today, sponsored by Beckhoff. Thank you, sir. And we have a representative of Beckhoff, Paxton Shantz. We also have a representative from Jet Edge, Aaron Montello.
Thanks, Dan. Good to be
I'm
here.
also joined with a co-worker, Tim Teston.
Tim
That was a
Teston,
joke. It was a Tim
Teston?
Heston. We might have had some
Teston.
issues with names earlier before. Today's episode, I imagine we'll be talking a lot about automation
Yes, sir.
when we're not mispronouncing names. So I think the audience would like to know more about Beckhoff, being that y'all occupy a special kind of place within the fabricating world.
Quickly, Beckhoff was started in 1980 by Hans Beckhoff, and to this day, it's still a privately held company. I think globally we have about, 5,500 to 6,000 employees. Very proud of the fact that we're privately held, and also very proud of the fact, from our point of view, we think that we have a very good open architecture control platform. Here at at FabTech, we're really trying to showcase our CNC technology, but of course, the Beckhoff solution can be used for a wide variety of applications, everything from process to automotive, intralogistics, semiconductor, etc.
So why should a fabricator know about Beckhoff?
I think we bring a very special breed of control platform. We call it PC-based control. So I think people are warming up to that terminology now. And what makes it special is how well we can tailor it to the customer applications. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all solution. So everything from the HMI, which we can completely customize, to the software itself that we develop for the applications. And then it becomes a very compact solution in terms of the servo drives, the motors, the safety, and then we could talk about the software, the analytics, the condition monitoring, the predictive maintenance, and now the AI. So it's just a very comprehensive, open architecture, easy to use solution.
And Aaron, Jet Edge is a user of Beckhoff technology?
We are, yeah. So Jet Edge, we make Waterjet machine tools and also the ultra high pressure pumps that power them, right? So in our Waterjet CNCs, we use a lot of Beckhoff hardware and software both, right? So think about motors and drives and IO and industrial PCs and HMIs, TwinCat software, right? There's a lot of things from their offering that is integrated together in our machines. And so, it's interesting. We strive to be the kind of supplier to our customers who starts by understanding needs, looking to deliver value to the unique situation that a customer has. And that's the kind of supplier they are to us. So it's kind of this happy synergy of the relationship. The way they serve us is how we look to serve our customers.
What might they provide in their product that helps Jet Edge better connect with like metal fabricators using the Waterjet equipment?
Yeah, so if you look at the range of, if we talk about hardware, you look at the range of offering that they have, right? So the cutting edge technology that's in the servo control, if you want to talk about that, or you want to talk about the industrial PCs. So the quality of the technical content in this hardware, right? But then it's also, to me, it's the full scope that they offer. So knowing that we have within their ecosystem all kinds of options of, if you want to add this, right? So one of the big things we do, every machine that we deliver is configured to order, and a fair number of the machines we deliver are engineered to order, right? So some custom componentry, and having a partner like them that we know we can go to and say, hey, we got a request for this, some unique automation thing, or some new option, something that adds value to a user, knowing that we've got a partner that we can go to and they can help sort of troubleshoot maybe how to configure that or what to specify as part of that solution. That's invaluable to us.
You mentioned configure to order. Like most of the fabricators I'm seeing here at the show, and heck, to be honest, for the last 10, 15 years, they're all, custom configure to order, high product mix. And, 15, 20 years ago, I used to visit shops and said, that's why we can't automate. We can't automate this or that because. And now, increasing use of cobots, increasing use of all sorts of new approaches to technology, new approaches to enterprise resource planning, open source, open architecture. Maybe you could talk about how, how you're kind of opening up the machine tool to make, you know, IIoT and other ideals a reality, to get that flow in a high product mix, configure to order fashion that so many of our readers are really needing.
To start, again, it's PC-based control. So if you want to connect up to an MES or an ERP system, it's native almost to the system, right?
Okay.
So it's important to point out that when I say PC-based, though, of course, the real-time OS is different than the PC side. But for us to pass the data from that PC side of the application to the actual control side, is very easy to do, right? It's essentially an internal TCP port. From there, it's the IoT. Every single one of our controllers is basically an edge controller. So
Right.
this is another benefit to most customers. You know, when most people think of, well, I've got to do some kind of IoT, then they think that they have to have an edge controller that's separate. And with Beckhoff, you don't need that either. So the software is built in, the hardware is built in, and then the rest of it, as far as if you want to manage, we'll say part numbers or configurations, lot size one, it really does get to be a very simple thing for us to manage.
Right. And that's kind of like foundational, because once you get that connectivity, then you feed that data back up to your ERP or MES. Then you would get to identify patterns. It's like, all right, here's our product families, here's our part families, here are similarities between different parts. Then where can we take technology to the next level? That kind of thing. Just kind of curious with your customer base, where do you see automation in general? As far as, are you seeing, you know, give me the range of the shops you're visiting.
Yeah, so it's interesting with Waterjet. I mean, we serve such a wide variety of markets, right?
Right.
So obviously here at FabTech, there's a lot of metals fabrication, right? Which is the biggest part of what we do. But we've got customers in stone fabrication and glass cutting, all the way down into soft goods, you know, plastic and foam and rubber and paper and cardboard and everything you can imagine, right? So for us, you know, the scope of automation can be really, really wide, right? So we're working on a project right now that's doing some cutting of corrugated box ends for a fruit packaging company. And so that's a unique application, very high volume. But in that case, we need some automation for delivering material in and out of the Waterjet system. So if you talk about material handling,
Right.
and so there's some unique things that we've done with the architecture of that machine, beyond just, it's not just a standalone Waterjet, right? It's a machine that we're looking at that might have 10 heads working dynamically, with cartridges of things going in and out of the machine with slitting heads. And so there's a lot of complexity, a lot to manage
Wow.
with cases like that. So
Yeah. What percentage of your water jets are custom ordered as opposed to standard product?
yeah, so we talk about every single machine is custom
Okay.
configured to order, right? It is truly quite rare that we have an identical bill of material, if you put it that way.
Wow.
If you talk about bill of material level, right? You take a step back. Okay, so we've got, like, you know, a lot of machine tools. We have different XY size tables. We've got a couple different product lines, a mid rail and a high rail. So they're used for different purposes. But you start to talk about sizing. There's a few common sizes, but we do everything from a 4x4 up to a 13x24. And so here you look at like metal service centers, which is a big market we serve. We've got customers who have, you know, maybe 4 machines, and they have 4 identical machines because they've decided
Right.
this is exactly the mix that they want to be able to handle. But if we take 2 metal service centers, these guys have 4 machines and these guys have 4 machines, and what they have between them is not the same, right?
Do customers come to you asking for or using phrases like Internet of Things, Industry 4.0? Or is it important for you as a manufacturer to make sure you have the capabilities in case those questions are asked?
We do get some inquiries on that stuff. I would say that's an area that it's probably more for us. And if we, you know, look to Beckhoff as a partner, right, in terms of the core technological enabling, right, that comes through a lot of stuff that they provide to us. So it's certainly, I mean, over the last years, that's been an increasing topic of conversation. I think, so one of the things that we offer with our machines is a lights out cutting feature, right? So you can load it up and walk away, right? Push the green button before you leave for the day and the machine runs overnight. And so error detection and things like that, the ability to remotely monitor the machine, those are all features that our customers come to rely on.
Right, right. It's interesting you mentioned lights out there. I covered one fab shop. This is kind of tangentially related, but he was considering lights out. So he did lights out production with some of his machines. But then they analyzed the data from the control, and they said, all right, fed the data back up and said, hey, how do we feed what kind of gauge to what machine? This was lasers.
Yep.
And he said, all right, simply by rearranging the machine, rearranging what we send when,
Yep.
thanks to the data, it's like we bought another laser. And that's how much capacity they freed. And so they stopped cutting at night. And now it's like, all right, when things pick back up, which they hope will in 2025, they've got a whole extra shift that they can go lights out.
Yep.
And for certain parts of it's a difficulty there for them. But it's kind of interesting. And it's
Yep.
all enabled by that control.
Yep.
So in how many years have you been in this business? Just kind of curious.
Oh man, I started in this business in 2000.
In 2000?
2000 with Delta Tau.
And was it always in CNC or was it always in?
No, initially I started as just an application engineer.
Okay.
On the phones, in the hot seat, or on the hot seat.
Yeah.
And then after, some time gaining some experience, I started doing some CNC applications, started out with some mills, and then, after that, others.
During all that time, what's kind of give me a sense of the age of your primary customer going, all right, what are they asking for? Because my story is I started out 22 years ago and everybody was all, but now half my sources are just like, hey, what was it like in the 1990s? I'm like, geez, because dear God.
Oh man, take a look at his
man.
eyes.
Yeah.
But just kind of give me a sense of, how the customer base has evolved.
Tim, that's kind of a tough question. As far as the decision makers, I would say that they're our age now.
Right.
That's pretty typical. But when it comes to actually specifying the application and then absolutely when we're developing the application software, it's a much younger crowd these days. We're seeing a definite trend towards people now wanting to program in ASCII-based languages. Very little ladder logic exists anymore.
Yeah.
And even in our case, you can, of course, program in any of the IEC 61131. So structured text being the common one for ASCII. But we've got customers that are also wanting to write applications in C++. So there's a little bit of a change. We're seeing visualization, traditionally C#. That's moving towards HTML and even Java. So there's, definitely the younger generation is now accepting the responsibility for the coding. And it's been a bit of a challenge because I think also they're trying to accelerate some of these technologies at a rate faster than the market wants to accept. So there even is a little bit of, I think,
right.
tug of war going on between upper management and the market versus what younger people have a vision to actually enable.
Yeah, what's interesting is, we're seeing trends, and this is software in general, but like we're seeing some coding, AI has transformed the coding generation because, it's basically coding is taken, AI figures out what the code is, and then the coding engineer does, the 10 or 20% on top. Not for CNC and machine critical operations, obviously, that's a little different. So, but for general management, but it's kind of interesting. And does AI apply to your sphere at all or no?
It does. And that too, I mean, it's hard to actually get my mind around everything that's happening with AI.
Uh-huh.
I think on the low end, our focus at Beckhoff right now it's mainly for machine learning. We've got different algorithms. I think we've got 4 different algorithms that are released right now into the wild that are being utilized. But moving forward, we're looking at things to do even with the vision. So for example, if you want to load a CAD file, this is the part that I want to make, how do you automatically take that file and use the vision plus AI to inspect the part when it's created to know that's exactly the part that I need. And you could, bypass, for example, any kind of future inspection after that.
Right.
And then it's hard to, yeah.
Well, that's a huge issue because, I've been to, a fabricator called me the other day and he said, listen, it's so hilarious. I cut the part and then I inspect the part with an arm and I key in the datum points I key it in. So he
Yeah.
keys in because it's a separate software program. And then somebody fat fingers it and says, oh, it's out of tolerance. So they rework something that shouldn't have been reworked in the first place. Why? Because of a data entry error.
Whoa.
And, it's just silly stuff, but you just don't think about it. You have robots all over the floor, but the most inefficiency happens because one software doesn't talk to another piece of software.
Yep.
So that's kind of, and we're seeing that's kind of a trend in this show is that everybody's kind of opening up and saying, all right, let's plug in and work together with this. And I assume that's your open architecture philosophy as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? Kind of. So in the metal fabrication space, where do you see what's Waterjet's new niche beside all the other the thermal cutting and punching? Just kind of bring me through all right, here's our niche within metal fab, kind of how that's evolved.
Yeah. So, I mean, Waterjet in general, if you want to talk about it as a technology compared to, let's say, laser or plasma, right? Obviously, you have the beauty of a non-thermal process, right? So you get the elimination of heat affected zone and the edge hardening that can happen, the elimination of hot cracking or oxide or recast, right? Especially for certain applications where the metallurgical properties are really critical. That's a big part of it. Another thing that's interesting about it, and again, as you think about challenges that manufacturers face all over, through the United States, labor shortage issues, right? So, as we look at Waterjet versus thermal process, the elimination or reduction of secondary operations of edge grinding or other, let's say, prep work that has to happen before maybe a weld operation, right? So Waterjet providing cleaner features and a better quality that requires less manual work as secondary operation, right? So some of those are things that manufacturers, fabricators really care about.
Right. Yeah. And the bevels, you don't require any hand grinding, which is the absolute worst job on the shop floor.
Yeah.
And,
I was just talking with somebody yesterday who has plasma machines, and they're like, I've heard of Waterjet, but I've never had one. Tell me why. And we started talking about this, and when we said, oh, you can eliminate, the burr and some of the work, and he's like, you can get rid of his mind exploded at the concept of, you could see how much pain this was causing for their organization. And, he was just talking about how difficult it is to find people to do that job. That's not a job people want to do.
So do you use water jets in your own manufacturing process?
We do.
Yeah.
We do. Yeah. And in a couple different ways, some in our shop and some, so some of our suppliers, actually it's fun. So we're in the Minneapolis area, right? We've got a local supplier up there who produces some of our larger weldments and things. And they are both a customer and supplier to us. So they have one of our machines they're using for fabricating things that we are buying from them. And so they're a great example of a place that we can take customers through and, just to see that, in principle, the machine building itself, right?
It's a kind of also nice feedback loop too.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
imagine.
Absolutely.
You get good guidance
Yep.
from a close user.
Yes.
Like that.
Yep.
Yeah. Has there been examples how the machine has evolved because of that feedback?
Yeah, that's a good question. Some of those certainly predate me. So I joined Jet Edge at the start of this year, right? So I know this is a relationship.
Really? Congratulations.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know some of that stuff has happened over the last, I think it's been about 8 years or so that they've had the machine. So I know that there's been a lot of feedback that's come through there. I don't have a specific example off the top of my head right now, but.
So, what type of phone call you mentioned earlier? What type of phone calls would you get? Like, what would be like the pain points for the people on the other end of the line?
Well, for the Jet Edge guys?
Or anybody, like a good example. Hey, I know the kind of
Where do I
calls you
start?
get. I don't know the kind of calls you get. Is it much more like time sensitive?
As far as, I think, are we talking about the technology that, people want to investigate?
But like when you were working call, like feedback from your customers, like they needed something done, answered, addressed. And, I know in the metal fabricating world, everything's like this.
Yep.
And I wonder if like the same type of pressures kind of are applied to you.
So not really. I mean, a lot of times, for example, when we started this last project together, right? Updating, they were using the older platform up until recently. So it was TwinCat 2, and now they're upgrading to TwinCat 3. And I think in total, that probably took us about 9 months to do that project. So there's things we could have done if we needed to accelerate it. We could have, but generally, our approach to the market is if a customer is trying to accomplish something, we do try to break it down into what exactly do they need to do. And it plays a little bit into that tailored solution approach. The last thing we want to do is get overcommitted. And so, I spend a lot of time actually with customers, one-on-one, exploring the application and really defining what the needs are going to be. And that usually leads into what I call a hardware layout is a good start. So this is what the hardware is going to be. And if they're coming from a platform other than Beckhoff, they're usually very impressed because there's going to be a significant reduction in the components required, which, reduces the amount of wiring, which reduces the cabinet space, et cetera. And then once we decide, this hardware layout looks like it's going to be a good fit, then we move on to a specification stage. And then we're going to, right, this is where we get into the nitty gritty details of what the customer's expectations are. And it might not just be the OEM, it's going to be the OEM's customer, the end user. What do they really need this machine to do? And then that becomes the focus. And from that, we can also, this is what the resources, are going to be. This is what the training requirements might be. Not trying to short circuit that question. But yeah, we do try to break it down into fundamentals. And that makes, I think for what maybe some people think is a simple process, something that we can actually manage and deliver on and try not to rush into,
Right.
Certain things. And then, if we are talking about, what are the maybe hot button items that people are bringing up to us? I think oddly enough, it's coming back around to the IoT.
Yeah.
And maybe if we talked more, what I think I saw was 8 or 9 years ago, it was really hot. Everybody was talking about IoT. And then it seemed like it kind of cooled down there for a bit. But now I think even with AI and COVID for sure, IoT is getting to be another, it's a very hot topic, everything from remote diagnostics to, analytics, and whether that's done right there, on the machine or it's going to be processed in the cloud. Securities, or data security, that's come up now. It's a pretty hot topic that people want to talk about. And then the rest is pretty fundamental.
Kind of brings up, I'm just riffing off of a presentation I saw on location tracking here, which was tracking up to the IoT platform of this certain shop. And the guy was saying, all right, I can use this in combination with machine monitoring because, all right, the machine monitoring he did purely mainly for the predictive maintenance, right? You wanted to go, all right, anything beyond, anything electronic that's not behaving as it should, I need to know. So fed that data up. And but then with location tracking, the ultra wideband technology that can actually track WIP throughout the shop. He said, all right, this is lean manufacturing 101. Parts spend most of their time as WIP. So as long as parts are moving, that's great. Machine has to be either machine uptime. I don't care about machine uptime. I care about machine availability. It needs to be on and ready to go to cut quality parts, not necessarily running all the time or overproducing.
Yep.
And he says using machine data as well as that location tracking data, literally it looks like Google Maps. It's like, here are all your parts flowing through. Here's the routing. It's like a real-time spaghetti diagram, really.
Yep.
And it's just incredible. It's like, all right, this is the future, because it's like the more I can shorten this, greater throughput. So like, I think he bought, I forget what it was. It was either a folding machine or a panel vendor or one of them.
Yep.
But he said, I don't care about the utilization of that machine. I realize the data I'm getting from that machine, thanks to that open interface, I know that the jobs that are going through that is helping the rest of the plant produce more. Hence, my throughput went up 20%. So it's like, hey, that's the ROI. It doesn't. I'm spending money when the dang thing's running. I'm not making money. It's kind of a new way, and data is kind of bringing that to the fore. But there's been a long history of challenge of trying to connect. I mean, I remember, and I used to write about MT Connect years and years ago, but the fab it hasn't caught on like it did in the machining industry. So where do you see the greatest need for IoT out there as far as your customer base goes?
It just gets down back. For me, it's the machine information and it's the analytics.
Yeah.
I think oddly enough, when IoT was originally talked about, a lot of machine builders were trying to monetize it. And now I think it's coming back where machine builders are realizing that it may be a little bit more difficult to monetize with the end user than they thought. As you mentioned, machine uptime was right, or OOE, I think was what they referred to it as.
Yeah.
Turned out to not really be the most important thing to the end users. But as IoT is coming back around, I think that the machine builders themselves are finding a lot of information, very valuable information in the data to make a better machine.
Right.
So,
Yeah. You see that with Jet Edge customers, Aaron?
Yeah. And I think, I'll say that the underlying core principle, the thing customers really care about, is that the machine is making good parts, right? Productivity is the most important. And it's been my view. I've been a capital equipment for 12 years. And throughout that time, my perspective has only grown and really further solidified in this concept that as a capital equipment supplier, my number one priority is to enable my customers to be productive and profitable with the equipment, right?
Mhm.
And that means, okay, what is the equipment's capability? We can talk about hardware, we can talk about software, we can talk about what does the machine need to be able to do. But for us, that's further, what do we need to be as a company, right? So we take service, we take the availability of tech support is extremely important, right? So if there's a situation with a machine and a customer picks up the phone to call us, we answer the phone. Or if our people happen to be busy, it's going to be a callback in 15 minutes, right? So we're not in the leave a message and get in queue and we'll get back to you in some days' time, right? To us, it's a very serious thing that we keep our customers productive and profitable with the equipment.
Yeah, I know. I talk about all these like fancy schmancy, tracking and like,
Yep.
incredible predictive maintenance. But
Yep.
most of our readers are like, yeah, but I'm just trying to freaking keep the machine on and I can't get the guy to come in to push the button,
Right.
and lack of service. And there's been over the lack of machine techs.
Yep.
It's tough out
Yep.
there, and how you coordinate that. And
Yeah.
the idea is to make the machine rock solid so
Yes.
it doesn't
Yep.
doesn't fault.
And it's kind of funny because I see it as kind of like with AI, right? It's a good kind of microcosm of it. But it's this reality that in the end, technology development, making the machine smarter and more capable, absolutely. But it has to be coupled with people, right? In the end, we're not eliminating people.
Right.
We're changing what they're doing, but it's the two have to work together to produce value for the customer, right?
Right.
Yeah. Anything a fabricator should be asking of their equipment supplier related to IoT to make sure the equipment they're buying is actually set up to maximize the benefits associated with it or IoT?
Oh, Dan, I wish I had a good answer for you. I that's a little bit, outside my scope. Securities,
Yeah.
make sure the security is there. And then if we're talking Beckhoff specific, I think that we really pride ourselves in, the amount of data that we can collect, particularly if it's a fully integrated system. There's really not a device on that control system that we don't have access to all the data.
Right.
So that makes it easy to troubleshoot. The rate at which we can do it. So, we've got devices that we can actually capture data down to the nanosecond. So when it comes to trying to troubleshoot a machine, I think that's beneficial. And so maybe not quite relative today, but I think, as I look towards the future, it's going to be using AI in conjunction with that data, and how do you keep that machine up? How is it really going to self-diagnose, prevent errors, or, it's going to improve the surface finish. It's going to improve the actual part quality, et cetera. So.
Yeah.
It's
AI
good.
eventually replaced podcast hosts as well.
That's right. Exactly.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today. I think the conversation's been good. So once again, thanks to Beckhoff Automation for sponsoring this episode. Thank you, Paxton. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Dan.
Montello. And Shantz. And Heston. Thank you, Tim Heston. If you have any comments, complaints, suggestions, criticisms, send them to podcast@fmamfg.org. And we'd appreciate the engagement. And sincerely, we would appreciate the engagement. That's it. Thank you. Goodbye.
The Fabricator Podcast is a production of Fabricators and Manufacturers Association. located in Elgin, Illinois. The show is hosted by Dan Davis and the staff of FMA Communications. The podcast is produced by Gareth Slager and recorded and edited by Griffin Hammond and Dana Weicker. Sales support provided by Andy Flando. Additional production support by Elizabeth Gavin, Mike Owens, Billy Culpa, Pat Simon, Brandon Geyer, and me, Sarah Spring. Email us at podcast@fmamfg.org. Thank you for listening.
Dude, I'm from Louisiana. I can handle complex names.